Hey guys, welcome to our weekly news show here on Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today we're going to be talking about Paytm and Paytm First Games being removed from the Google Play Store, Snapdeal's interesting innovation, YouTube's response to the space left behind by TikTok, even more upcoming 2021 startup IPOs, all of the latest funding news, including an interesting move from Flipkart and more coming up right after this. All right, so first up in the news, Google has removed Paytm and Paytm First Games from the Google Play Store. And they're doing this because, according to Google, Paytm and Paytm First Games have violated the Google Play Store gambling policy. In a blog post, Google had said that they don't allow online casinos or support any unregulated gambling apps that facilitate sports betting. They also said that any app that leads to an external website enabling gambling can be banned. And so at first I was confused about why Paytm was banned alongside Paytm First Games. Because at first glance, Paytm First Games is definitely the main offender here. It's an app that facilitates fantasy sports betting. But I think Paytm was also removed from the Play Store probably because there are links within Paytm that lead to Paytm First Games or perhaps the Paytm First Games website. But what I find most interesting about this situation is the timing. Paytm First Games, which was previously known as GamePinned, has been on the Play Store since 2018. But between 2018 and yesterday, it seems like Google just ignored Paytm First Games' existence. Now, as many of you know, today, September 19th, marks the beginning of IPL 2020. And one report that we had read while doing research for this story claimed that Paytm First Games was aiming to obtain 100 million new users during this year's IPL. The report also claimed that Paytm First Games had set aside a 300 crore rupee marketing budget specifically for this event. I mean, they could have given Paytm a little warning, maybe a day's notice, but no, they just banned them out of the blue. Now, I should say that Google hasn't banned any of Paytm's other apps, but I don't think that really mitigates how serious a situation this is for Paytm right now. And I honestly feel bad for the company right now because I'm pretty sure that people are scrambling. But my hope is that Paytm will learn a lesson from this experience and choose to be independent from companies like Google in the future. Because let's face it, relying on your competition for the distribution of your product or your service is really not a smart idea. All right, quick announcement regarding our next live stream. First of all, big thanks to everybody who tuned in for our first ever live stream last weekend. The turnout was amazing, and I know that Prithvi is looking forward to hosting the next live stream later today. However, because IPL 2020 is going to be starting at 7:30 tonight, we're going to be preponing Backstage with Millionaires' second ever live stream from 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing you guys there, and make sure that you bring all of the questions that you have about entrepreneurship and startups, because Prithvi is going to do the best that he can to answer as many as possible. All right, next up in the news, and this is kind of just a fun one, Snapdeal has partnered with Ottonomy IO to develop an autonomous last-mile delivery robot. These robots use specialized AI algorithms to navigate their way across crowded areas by using the data from 3D Lidar and cameras to understand their external environment. So the pilot of these robots was conducted by Snapdeal in select areas in Delhi-NCR, and the way that the pilot was conducted was these robots were placed inside of residential societies and they were given maps of these societies so that they could navigate them. And one thing that I think is really cool is that while the packages are inside of the robots are actively disinfecting and sanitizing the packages. So if these robots were to go mainstream, then Snapdeal would essentially be killing two birds with one stone. On the one hand, we're living in a pandemic right now, and I think it's safe to say that this pandemic has kind of created a paradigm shift in the way that we think about bacteria and viruses and just overall, the air that we're breathing in, the things that we're touching with our hands. And so safe and sanitary package delivery is actually something that's pretty important at this point. And then on the other hand, I think it would just be cool to get things delivered by a robot instead of a guy on a bike. I've personally had some negative experiences with delivery boys in the past, and so having a robot delivering packages instead of delivery boys may reduce the number of negative experiences that customers have with the last mile experience. Now, I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys here, and feel free to disagree with me in the comments section down below. Maybe I'm just a pessimist, but personally, I just think that this is a PR move. Potentially, way down the line, robots like these might be used for last mile delivery, but I don't really see that happening for another 5, maybe even 10 years. This is a country where traffic can be pretty crazy in terms of vehicles, but also foot traffic from pedestrians, and then also animals as well. You've also got pretty extreme weather conditions, specifically when it comes to monsoon, and that results in a lot of flooding. And that flooding can also lead to pretty bad road conditions with massive potholes and huge cracks in the road. You've also got the potential for these robots to be defaced or stolen. And that's not really an India thing, that's just generally wherever you live, people tend to want to try to steal these things or break these things just for fun. Now, if anybody at Snapdeal is watching this, please prove me wrong. I think that it would be really cool to see little robots driving around all over the city delivering packages. But as far as I can tell, this is a technology that we won't see widespread adoption of for the foreseeable future. So we're going to move on to the next news item in just a second, but before we do, if you're not already subscribed, and I know a majority of you guys who are watching this video right now are not subscribed, make sure you do that right now because we post new videos every single week about Indian startups, entrepreneurs, and the latest news. Also, go check us out on Instagram because we post news items there every single day. All right, next up in the news, let's talk about YouTube Shorts. So this is essentially YouTube capitalizing on the TikTok ban in the same way that Instagram did a couple weeks back. Now, YouTube Shorts itself isn't really adding anything to the short form video equation. They're basically doing the same thing as the rest of the competition in this space. They're allowing users to publish short form videos. These are 15-second long videos, which users can add music to. They can speed them up or slow them down. They can take multiple clips and stitch them together into that 15-second long video. And at first glance, it looks like YouTube is a little bit late to the party. You've got a ton of different players in this space right now. You've got Instagram Reels, you've got ShareChat's Moj, and you've got Chingari, Mitron, and Roposo. That being said though, YouTube definitely has a number of different things going for it. First of all, they've got 265 million users in India. That's 26.5 crore users, which is more than double the number of users that Instagram has in India. They've only got 100 million or 10 crore users. Also, YouTube has a pretty substantial audio library that their creators have access to. And this library is home to a lot of well-known songs that people are definitely going to want to put into their YouTube Shorts. And then lastly, YouTube already has 50 million Indians, that's 5 crore Indians, actively creating content on their platform. And so if they can entice even a small percentage of those creators to start making YouTube Shorts, then they might end up being a pretty sizable source of competition for the other players in this space. All right, next up in the news, even more startups are looking to go public in the next year or two. In the last 3 months, Policy Bazaar, Paytm, Milkbasket, and Zomato have all announced that they're looking to go public in 2021. And it looks like other startups are starting to follow the trend. Firstly, let's talk about MobiKwik. They've announced that they're looking to kickstart the process of going public, hopefully by 2022. Next, let's talk about e-commerce giant Flipkart. According to a Reuters report, Walmart is looking to take Flipkart public as early as 2021. The IPO could value Flipkart up to $50 billion, that's 3.68 lakh crore rupees, which would mean that Walmart would be able to end up doubling its investment, as Flipkart is currently valued at $24.9 billion or 1.84 lakh crore rupees. Now, there have been talks about taking Flipkart public since Walmart acquired the company, and last year alone, Flipkart's CEO Kalyan Krishnamurthy had said that taking Flipkart to an IPO was his big dream in the next 3 years. However, because Flipkart is nowhere near being profitable and therefore can't go public in India until the rules are changed, there's a pretty big chance that Flipkart will either choose to go public in Singapore, which is the country where Flipkart is incorporated, or the United States, which is the home country of Walmart. And then lastly, let's talk about India's logistics unicorn Delhivery, which has said that it's planning on going public in the next 12 to 18 months. Just like Flipkart, Delhivery would probably like to be listed in India, but because they're not profitable, they'll probably aim to go public in the United States instead. However, there have been reports that the Securities and Exchange Board of of India is busy finalizing regulations on overseas listing that would make it possible for Indian companies to go public abroad. Now, I'm definitely not an expert on this, and if you are, do leave a comment down below explaining things, but my understanding is that currently, unless an Indian company is listed in India, they can't be listed abroad. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, if an Indian company isn't profitable, then technically they're not allowed to go public in India. That means that technically, Indian companies that aren't profitable shouldn't be able to go public abroad. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of Indian companies are incorporated in countries like, for example, Singapore. If you're a company that's incorporated in Singapore, then Singapore allows you to go public outside of Singapore, at least this is what I've understood, even if you're not profitable. However, if the SEBI were to change its regulations to allow Indian companies to go public outside of India without first being listed within India, or if the SEBI were to remove the requirement for Indian companies to first be profitable before going public in India, then perhaps companies like Flipkart and Delhivery might decide to change their IPO plans. Alright, moving on to some funding news now. India's only gaming unicorn, Dream11, has raised $225 million, that's 1,657 crore rupees, from Tiger Global, Footpath Ventures, TPG Tech Adjacencies, and Chris Capital. This funding is expected to value the company at $2.5 billion, or 18,410 crore rupees, which would more than double its last valuation from April of last year, which was $1.1 billion, or 8,100 crore rupees. Alright, next up in the funding news, Flipkart has raised $68.2 million, that's 462 crore rupees, from Chinese multinational tech conglomerate Tencent. These funds are expected to be part of a $1.2 billion round, that's an 8,837 crore rupee round, which was led by Walmart earlier this year in July. Now, this news is definitely interesting for one very obvious reason, and that's China. The Indian government is actively trying to reduce India's reliance upon China. And Flipkart is currently India's most valuable internet company. Now, it gets a little bit complicated because Flipkart is owned by Walmart, which is an American company, and then also Flipkart is, again, like I mentioned earlier, incorporated in Singapore. And then of course, also Flipkart has raised funds from a bunch of different other companies, including Tencent. And it's estimated that Tencent owns approximately 4 to 5% of Flipkart. However, despite that convoluted mess of ownership, I think it's pretty safe to say that Flipkart is an Indian company in that they're serving Indian customers. Now, my guess is that Flipkart didn't raise these funds from Tencent in India. They probably did it in Singapore. And the reason for that, of course, is that India recently revised its FDI policy to make it more difficult for Chinese investors to invest in Indian companies. Now, I should say that I don't have proof of this. It could be that Flipkart was able to raise these funds in India, but my guess is that they probably took the Singapore route because it would have been significantly easier. Alright, that is all the startup news that I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the like button and also hit subscribe if you haven't already if you want to see more videos like this one. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Backstage with Millionaires, and I will see you in the next one.